Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Culture Crush. Today on the show, we're talking about 3 practical ways to live by design and not default. And I'm joined by the most excellent Wilson Obeneme. Wilson, it's your first time on the show. It's great to have you joining us.
Oh, yes, Dan, and thanks for extending the invite. In fact, when I saw it, I was like, let's do this. I'm so excited to be here and look forward to discussing with you and just sharing our thoughts. Yeah.
Me too. Now, what people don't get to see, right, is behind the scenes, and they won't have seen the last 5 minutes of me just trying to do that introduction. So consider yourselves blessed, people, because the last 5 minutes have been a bit of a podcast horror show. But I finally got there in the end. I managed to get all my words out of my mouth in the right order, broadly speaking. But no, it's a joy to have you back. You joined me for Culture Crush Live recently. Yeah. And for anyone who's not been to Culture Crush Live yet, here's how it works. An expert comes and joins us for the live event. We talk about some really inspirational, some really moving stuff, often around personal growth or productivity or challenges that founders have to overcome, or, you know, how to step into a more empowered sense of leadership, those kind of things. And then that expert presents for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we have this amazing group discussion together where everybody contributes. How did that thing make them feel? Like, where were they inspired? What are they going to put into practice tomorrow? And those contributions form this episode. So what Wilson's going to talk us through in a little bit isn't just what he brought to Culture Crush Live, but it's also been informed and developed by the people who were on that call with us. So if you haven't had a chance to join for Culture Crush Live yet, please do come along and help us shape one of these episodes. It will be great to have you with us. But before we dive into this subject, how to live by design and not default, I want to ask you 3 questions. Not you, Wilson, but you're more than welcome to reflect on these yourself. But these are for you. Yeah. But these are for you, our listeners and viewers. As you hear what Wilson's got to say, and you hear the direction and the movement of our conversation, I want you to think about these 3 things. Do you keep doubting yourself? And why do you think that might be? Question number 2, this is about expectations. Do you find yourself chasing other people's expectations of you? And question number 3, think about where your sense of validation comes from. Are you looking to other people to give you your sense of self-worth and your sense of self-confidence? Are you looking for them to validate you? Or are you able to find that from within? There are no right or wrong answers here, but obviously some of the stuff we're going to talk about is hopefully going to help you wrestle with some of that stuff, help build your confidence, help you start to shape the life that you want to live. So we're doing some big stuff. And on that front, actually, Wilson, I will ask you this. This is going to sound really grand, but are you ready to change a life in this podcast episode?
Well, yeah, totally. I'm super excited about it because for me, I think that's what I live for right now and going forward. Because I truly feel we can help each other uncover things about ourselves, change our lives, and then just keep that going, touch other people as we are touched, as we are transformed, as we are changed. So super excited about this. So I am.
I agree, man. I totally feel that vibe. It's kind of the reason why I joke about that question is because it sounds really grand. But when you came and did Culture Crush Live with us, I set a challenge, right? I said, it's not a seminar or a webinar, man. You've got to take people to church. You've got to, we've got to lead them into that place of reflection and growth and openness, which you did excellently. Your tone, the way you led us through some of these points, just really had that reflective, mindful introspection. And I found it so powerful. But the reason why I say you're ready to change a life is because somebody is going to lead their team differently tomorrow based on what they hear you talk us through. Somebody's going to treat their kids differently. Someone's not going to lose their patience with a parent, or their, perhaps they've got an elderly relative who they find frustrating. Like, people are going to respond to each other differently based on the things that we're talking about here. And yeah, it might not be life-changing in that really dramatic sense, but it might lead someone to have an aha moment and go, oh, there is a different way to approach my life. And maybe I have been carrying around labels that don't serve me anymore, or maybe I am looking to other people for validation when I should be looking into myself a little bit. Yeah. Those small things, those small tweaks can lead to big changes down the line. Sometimes they lead to big changes instantly, of course, as well. Like we can have those transformational moments. But today we're talking about three things, right? And correct me if I've misunderstood, but I think the three stops on our journey. One, this is about what brings you true fulfillment. Obviously not you, Wilson, but you viewers and listeners. But feel free to talk about that as well, of course. Number two, how you want to be remembered. And number three, what does impact look like for you, or what does achievement look like for you? So take us through the first kind of chapter there about fulfillment. I really can't wait to dive into this with you, and I'll chip in if I've got any questions or ideas.
Oh, sure. And by the way, thanks again for, I'll say, this opportunity, because I'm always excited when I have to talk about this stuff, because I've seen the little change you talked about, but how impactful it has been in my life and the lives of other people I've been able to coach and then talk with. So I'm truly excited to be here. Yeah, so maybe we should start with, what does it even mean to live by design against living by default? I think that's an interesting title. Most times when people see it, when I talk about these things, they're like, what does that even mean? To be fair, honestly, I got this from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. If you've read that book, you should have heard this term. I think that should be in chapter 3 of the book. They talked about personal vision. And for me, it was just a grand idea of, instead of following what is laid out, what is expected, in quotes, by people, by society, our friends, our peers, and different things around us, how do we get to the point where we actually design what we want, right? Obviously, not everything they want for us is bad, but there are lots of things that we can do better if we go with what we actually perceive as more natural for us than going through this standard path that has been built. So that's the idea. How do I live my life by what I have defined to a large extent, obviously putting into consideration a lot of things that I have learned from people I respect and from others who have done things I want to do, against just, hey, wake up in the morning, you have to do this, go to school, get the degree, get the job, and work for 200 years if you live that long. So it was when I read through that particular chapter, as well as coaching people, I then saw the need that, maybe people need to hear this a bit more. And the challenge with it is most people are not even aware that the life they are living is not what they really want, because it has been so ingrained into them. They only see that life as what it is, right? This is the only way I know. And I come across a lot of people like that daily, because they're like, things that should be done this way. I'm like, does it really? Does it really? That's about living by design, where you get to decide to a large extent how you want life to go, and then try to intentionally build towards it. And the very first part I always ask people to consider is truly what brings you happiness and fulfillment. It can be tricky, because people will say things like, maybe what brings me happiness will not really lead, it might not be a positive thing, right? And that's why the fulfillment comes in, because fulfillment is beyond just happiness. It's a sense of, I say fulfillment is a sense of having lived up to what you should be able to do. Your ability to go as close to your potential as possible. I think that's what generally leads to fulfillment. And this is the very first part that, if you want to live by design, you need to think about, right? Hey, Dan, what do you typically enjoy? What do you feel it's within you, that innate talent, in quotes, or ability that when you are in that mode, it just gets you really excited. You're almost in what we call the flow state, where you don't even think about things. While others might struggle to comprehend those things, for you, it just comes naturally. You don't struggle with it because it's something that really resonates with you, something that is embodied in you, right? And our ability to understand that aspect of our lives, like, okay, this is what I'm capable of doing, and this is how I feel when I do it. I think it's a no-brainer. Everyone should know that for a start. Everyone. So you might have a fantastic job, right? The question is, how does that make you feel? Do you wake up in the morning really feeling like you're going to make the world a better place? You're going to make a difference in someone's life. You're going to help someone see things differently. And I know I talked about this when we had the live. How can I make people have an experience when they come close to me? Not just my skill, but you come close to me and you're like, I just feel happy. I just feel excited. I just feel driven because I'm close to you. And you can only do that when you find what is your what brings you happiness and fulfillment. Then you can easily dissipate that to other people. So I think what everyone should at some point just sit down and ask myself, yes, I'm making money. Yes, I'm famous. Yes, I am having this and that. But truly, am I happy? Am I living a life that I wake up every morning and I'm like, my life is going well. I might not have everything, but deep within, there's this sense of peace. There's this sense of satisfaction that I'm heading in the right direction. I'm doing things I should be doing. So when we look into true happiness, right? And I say to people, when you're finding your true happiness, find it outside of things, right? Because things can come and go. That's the truth. Let's be honest. Life can just go upside down. And for a lot of people, when that happens, they lose their happiness, like literally forever. But your ability to be happy should be something that transcends material things. And that's why I always say, start to your purpose, you start to your abilities and the way you want to impact the world. So that's where I'll leave it at for now. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because Sheena on a call, just a quick shout out to you, Sheena. It was lovely that you could join us. She was talking about Clifton's Strengths Finder as a great way, if you're not really kind of dialed in on what your strengths are. Like if somebody asks you, what are your strengths? And you struggle to answer that question, like it reminds me a bit like of, that question, like, what do you want for Christmas? Like when I was young, I really struggled because there's so many things that I want, right? And it's really hard to know, what does my heart really desire? And sometimes it can be really difficult. Or when you go onto Netflix, right? If you're not sure what you want to watch, it becomes you have like decision paralysis. It becomes really difficult to pick one thing over another because you didn't have a plan yet, right? And so when somebody says in an interview, like, what are your strengths? Sometimes you might go, it's actually can be quite difficult. So if you're that person, Sheena's recommendation there of doing something like Clifton Strengths Finder, I thought was a really, really good one, just to begin to help you hunt down, like, what are the modes that you can be in where you start to feel that sense of fulfillment? Because everybody has lots of people have jobs, right, where it's like, actually the job itself might not do that much for you. Like lots of people are stuck in jobs they don't really love. But as you said, if you can actually lean into your strengths within your role, maybe the job is kind of like the material thing in that sense. The way you approach it, the way you approach your colleagues, maybe that can be an area where you live out your strengths and you can draw that sense of fulfillment. You saw me rustling through my notes because I've got the notes here from our live session. And you talked about your attributes that you want people when they come to you to have that sense of clarity and to have a sense of drive. And I loved that you had that sense of understanding about when people make contact with me, I want them to walk away changed, feeling clear and feeling that sense of drive. I think for me, when people make contact with me, I think I want them to experience a sense of they've been heard, that they've had a sense of belonging, that they're welcome in my space. So I welcome you, and when you're here, I see you, I hear you, I listen to what's going on in your world. Like there's some of the things that I want people to experience when they make contact with me, which has only started to become clearer for me since, well, I guess it's always a journey, right? But I've enjoyed reflecting further on that since our meetup together. And I think just bringing it back to that this first chapter, I guess we've been talking through, I guess there's a versus, right, between what is expected of me, like what's been expected of me on my journey so far, in my career so far, in my family so far, versus what do I choose? What do I choose? And because here's the thing, right? Like when you choose to lean into your strengths, or when you choose to say, like, when people make contact with me, I want them to experience X or Y. When it's something that you've opted into, you really are going to deliver against those things, because it's an act of your will, not somebody else's. Whereas we all know what it's like, right? When you're kind of in a job and you have to do a presentation and your heart's not really in it. You know the difference we're talking about. Everyone who's listening to this call would have done those presentations where they weren't really feeling it, and they would have done presentations where they were really feeling it, and they know how different those experiences are. So yeah, what is expected versus what we choose. And so I love that bringing it right back to Stephen Covey and the whole idea of living a life by design rather than just those expectations. So we've got this idea of leaning into your attributes. What do you want people to experience when they make contact with you? How can you lean into non-material things to pursue that sense of fulfillment? That's kind of in the now, but then in the next chapter is this kind of like much bigger picture about how do we want to be remembered? Tell us about that.
Yeah. By the time you realize your strengths, and that is you, first of all, you discovering you. When you're able to find that, naturally, the next step will be, okay, the people actually, what about me makes people experience what I want them to experience, right? And that is deeper. In fact, you need to study yourself over and over again to be able to figure that out, because that makes up your core values. It makes up your core attributes, right? So let's say, for example, just like we said, for me, I derive joy and fulfillment when people actually discuss with me and they're like, oh my God, I'm clear on my next step. In fact, I had one of those calls today, and it gladdened my heart, because when I started discussing with this person, she was in a state where she just couldn't take action. She was demotivated. And as of today, when we were wrapping up the discussion, she's like, I'm super motivated to do what I want to do, right? That is what brings satisfaction to me. But the question is, what about me will help people experience that? And that is where it comes to your core, like your attributes. So maybe just like you said, you want, when people come close to you, you want them to feel heard. Right. So the question is, what about you creates that environment, that atmosphere for them to feel heard? You have to be a good listener, an empathic listener, that for people to feel that way, to trust you enough. Right. What are those unbendable values that you're not going to take away, even if there is nobody watching you? This is who I am. These values are so embedded that I don't need anybody to be watching me to live out those values. And I think that is really deep, because you're not doing it to please people, but guess what? A lot of people will be pleased by it. So it's not when they are there or when they are not there. It's, this is how I live my life, right? And being able to understand those core values about yourself. I tell people, one of the ways to know is just really ask your friends, like, what do you think about me for real? And I do this a lot. When you see me, what are the things that just jump to you, like, into your mind? How do you feel? Obviously, they'll say, okay, it's consistency, drive, and all of that. And then the question is, what about me do you feel makes you feel that drive? Is it the way I talk? Is it the way I do things? And then they'll start learning some attributes. For me, for those who grew up with me, one thing they always say is, this guy is excellent, because I've always tried to, as much as possible, right? Try to be excellent at what I do. I don't need my boss to be there. It has nothing to do with my boss. In fact, my boss might see my work and be like, oh my God, this is really amazing. And might come and say, okay, are you doing this to please your boss? No, I'm not doing it to please him. It's my personal core value. This is my attribute. I don't need to please him. This is how I've decided to live, right? And being able to really understand that over time, you start molding yourself, or you start evolving into a deeper version of yourself, because one, you're clear on, okay, these are my attributes. How can I strengthen them? How do I deepen them? So that when people hear about me, when people see me, they see that attribute personified. And I think that's like another level. And I'm not there yet, but that's the idea, right? When you think of a name, something comes to your mind. And there are a couple of people I can name, but I'm also conscious because one of them, right now, I think a lot of people are bashing him, but and I'll just go ahead if that's fine. Elon Musk, for example. I say to people that even if you don't like Elon Musk, you would like someone like Elon Musk to be on your team, because you know he will deliver. You might not like what he's delivering on, but you would want somebody that is as excellent as he is in what he does. Now, it's what is he using that excellence for? We can argue about it, but you know that guy will show up. You know he will show up. So, yeah,
I think he would certainly. I think he'd show up for what he's chosen. I'm not sure if he'd show up for what the team expected.
Yeah, for what he is chosen. But I'm saying if you have a team and you have somebody like him that you know, like this guy runs SpaceX, he runs Twitter, he's one person, right? I don't know how he does it, but I think people should be impressed by his level of consistency in terms of delivering things. So, like I said, what in terms of what he's delivering, I don't know if we agree with all of that, but his ability to show up and say, "Hey, I want to do this," and actually get it done, that is something he embodies, right? And we have to find our own space. We have to find our own attributes. That when people hear about you, Dan, what comes to mind? Oh, this guy listens. He's a great listener, right? While discussing with him, you can open up yourself beyond which you typically do with other people. It tells something about you, right? It might not be tangible, but that attribute is there because you must have done that over a period of time, and then people are now comfortable with you to be able to trust you to that level. So that's what people should aim to be remembered for, right? Obviously, make all the money you want. We want to make that money. But beyond that is, like, even our kids, our relatives, what do they think about us? This is not we trying to live out their expectations, but this is us living our own life. But they're so blessed by it. They see something really deep in how we live our lives. And they point other people to them. Like, if you want to learn how to build this character or this value, talk to this guy. So I think,
there's a few kind of interesting, very interesting ideas. We're really talking about how do you embody your character traits and what do you want to be remembered for? Like, where does that sense of fulfillment come from? And it takes me right to the end of one's life. That when you think about the autumn of your years and you think about the people that you want to spend time with, what kind of relationship do you want to have with those people? Because money's an obvious example, right? The pursuit of wealth is probably going to keep you very busy. It's probably going to keep you on planes. It's probably going to keep you in meetings. It's probably going to keep you doing deals and absorbing a lot of your time. That might not be congruent with building great relationships with the people around you. So when you get to the end, and money's an easy one to pick on, right? Like it's so, forgive us for being on the nose with this example. But when you get to the end, I guess the question is, what's going to fulfill you? Is it going to be the bank balance, or is it going to be the quality of the relationships you have around you? I would say, I hear what you're saying about an instigator and an action taker like Elon Musk. I would venture to suggest that there's a fairly reasonable chance that he might get to the end, hit the autumn of his years, and goes, was it was the pursuit of power really worth it? Like, have I got a great relationship with my? I can't even pronounce the name of his kid, but like, have I got a good relationship with my child? Are they fulfilled? Are they happy? Like, was the power worth it? I'm not sure when he gets to the autumn of his years that he'll look back and think, yeah, I got the balance right. I got the balance right. But I do take the point there that instigators and people who actually say they're going to do something and then do it, that I think is a really important point. And I want to talk to the founders actually for 1 second out there. I meet loads of great founders, right? You've got coaching practices, consultants, they want to start agencies, they want to start up charities. They've got loads of good things they want to do in the world. Oftentimes, though, I see people who are quite comfortable. They've got their needs met, right? There is a lack of urgency because it's difficult to feel urgent, right, when your bills are paid, right? Because that's the other thing about money, right, is that when you don't have it, it's an excellent motivator to get stuff done.
Yeah.
When you do have it, it can mean that you can kind of sit back sometimes and go, well, if it all starts to come together, like it can take away that sense of urgency. So if you are a founder and you've got a big vision, I really encourage you, be that person who moves forward into action, right? Ask yourself the question, am I too comfortable actually? Because maybe you shouldn't be a founder because you're too comfortable, right? Maybe there isn't that kind of burning fire. You haven't got a burning platform that's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So ask yourself that question. If I want to be a founder, actually, is the fire there? Like, am I going to be the person who is an action taker? Do I want people to experience that when they make contact with me, I do the things that I'm talking about? Or am I just adding more noise, right? That's not really part of this podcast, but I think that's a challenge that I wanted to put out there for people. You mentioned about asking friends, and I think this is such a great point, actually, because we hear a lot about start with why, and try and find your raison d'etre, your why for doing something. But I think a lot of people aren't really sure what their why is yet, and I think so often we try and spin a why out of nothing because somebody said start with why. We go, oh, I should just figure out my why and just pluck it out of thin air. Actually, if you want to get to those fulfillment questions and go a bit deeper, I think you've got to start with who. You've got to sit down with your friends and say, when we talk, where do you see me light up? Like, when do you see me come alive? And make a note of what they say. Or what you say, when I present this thing, what was it about it that you really appreciated or were surprised by? Write those things down. And I think that's a really good way to begin to uncover, to your point, really, to uncover what is going to be a fulfilling thing for you to pursue. So I think starting with who, in that sense, is a really good idea. And we had such a great conversation, didn't we, in the live? We were talking about people who've gone through cancer diagnoses. We were talking with people who are going through redundancy. I shared some stories about my own redundancies as well. And it was a really kind of heart-rending conversation that we are all facing enormous struggles, right? Mm-hmm. And actually, by being able to talk about them and starting with who and having that dialogue just can remind you of how tough you are as well, right? It can remind you of how resilient that you can be. And taking that spirit into conversations and saying, hey, what is it about me that lights you up? Where do you think my strengths are? Can help you, marry that with that resilience. And then I think you can start making some really big strides around your sense of self-worth. But I'm beginning to ramble and get off topic, but I hope there's some interesting threads in there for us to pull. But unless you want to come back on any of that stuff, our third and final stop on this journey was around impact and achievement. So I wondered if you wanted to, we may have already covered it to be fair in the last section, but was there anything else that you wanted to add around impact and achievement?
Oh, yeah. I think when it comes to impact and achievement, you're truly looking at the end of your life, just like you mentioned, how many people did you touch, what you're doing, how many lives did it really impact? right? And I think this is where legacy is built. And I think it's an important aspect of life people should think about. So when we talk happiness and fulfillment, it's mainly about you. It's still around you. What will make me happy? What will make me fulfilled? When we talk core values and the attributes at the end of your life, it's how the people perceive me. But I think this part is very important, very, very important, because this transcends just you, right? The business I'm building, really, what problem is it solving? How many people will benefit from that solution, right? How will that change their lives? And I presume everybody, we want to be agents of positive change, right? So I want to believe if someone is building a business, it's because this person has seen a problem that other people are facing, and you're trying to make the world a better place. And yeah, through it, you get paid for it. But the goal is to solve a problem. And that's when it comes to impact, is truly how can I replicate what I feel is a way to help other people be better. And our ability to do that at scale, that's impact, right? Mind you, it might not be across 1 million people, but even if it's 5 people you really invest in with what you've discovered about yourself and a solution you've developed, right? Just knowing that that can have a ripple effect over time and just change people's lives from one person to the next to the next. I think that is a good measure of how well somebody has lived. My personal opinion, right? So, in fact, for someone like me that left my job to start a business, that was one of the key reasons why I did it. One of the key reasons was the impact part. And I always say this to people: I have nothing against working for big organizations, because I believe mine will get big as well. But I got to the point where I felt like the impact I was making, right? I work within a team, I make that impact. That team makes that impact is felt by a bigger business. The business is felt, that impact then goes to the next level. By the time it gets to the customer doesn't remember that Wilson did something for him or her, because that has gone through like 5 layers, and the customer just sees the name of this big company. They provided it. And for me as a person, like I said, I'm so big on making a direct impact that people remember me for what I have done. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for a while, but I've gotten to the point where I want to have, first of all, that connection with people, and find a way to just make somebody's life better through maybe our conversations, through the podcast, or just speaking in like Culture Crush live. And I think it's very important people think about that. Like I said, it doesn't have to be one grand idea, but it should be something that beyond yourself, people can look back and say, because of Dan, I became a better person. Because of this person, my life actually changed forever, in a small way, but very effective as well. And if you're able to do that, I think looking back at the end of your life, you should really be proud of what you've achieved. Because even when you're not there, people will talk about what you did for them, right? And that's the next layer of it. So after you find what makes you happy, because if you don't find what makes you happy, I feel it will be difficult to get to that point where you're making impact at that scale, because you're pushing against a wall. You're not happy, and you're trying to make an impact through something you're not really, you don't find happiness and fulfillment in. It's going to be difficult. And then you go to the next layer where, okay, this is what gives me joy. This is what brings fulfillment. But these are the core values and the guardrails around which I will do the things I want to do. Right? Not because anyone is forcing me to do this. I've designed my life to live in this manner, and I'm going to use those core values to do the things I want to do. And then the final part is now, okay, now I've defined my boundary and how I'm going to operate. How do I replicate that across people, across different spheres of life, different areas, reach more people? And by the time you look at that line, I feel it should give you a sense of fulfillment and direction, right? Because it's not just I hope to make the world a better place. And I hear people say this a lot. I hope to make the world a better place. Through what? How do you intend to do that? I just know I'm going to do it. And I know it's a journey, but the earlier you get to align these thoughts, these 3 buckets or categories. I think it helps you discover yourself, just like you said, who you are, understand what is locked within you, because the thing is, you are so unique that nobody can do what you do, the way you do it, for the reasons you do it. Nobody. And being able to understand that should give you a sense of somebody's actually out there looking for me to share my light, for that person to see. Like you get to feel it, because I'm sure that, yeah, we might do a podcast, right? We're all doing podcasts, but the way I talk on my podcast cannot be exactly the way you talk. And the reasons I'm doing a podcast can never be the same reason, exactly the same reason you're doing it. It varies. And then there are people who relate with me and my uniqueness, and there are people who relate with you and your uniqueness. But the thing is, at the end of the day, we're able to reach out to people who will listen to what we have to say, and they're motivated, they're driven, they're excited about life once again. And and just go ahead to even do things that would then impact the world. So passively or actively, for me, my goal is get people excited about life, get them to realize who they are, how unique they are, and importantly, what kind of impact they can make in our world. So that's what I think about this. Go out there, do what you do it well. Somebody out there is waiting for you to come to them to help them unlock the next level of their life.
I think that is such a critical point, because I see so many people trying to start their own businesses. They're there and they're trying to write in ways or share their story in ways that focus on reach. Like, if I can just write a hooky line, maybe I can get enough people to look at my business, and then maybe 1 or 2 people from that viral post will reach out to me. No, it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. You've got to write from your soul. You've got to create from your soul. Be really clear about the thing that you offer, because, as you say, people are waiting for your particular brand of magic. And do you know what? That might not travel far on social media, but the right people will begin to find you, because you don't need 1,000 views. You need 10 views from the right people. Like, that's how great little businesses get made, right? By you presenting your true self in the most authentic way possible. You do need to be clear about the point. I think that sense of like, but how are you going to check? What's the why? What's the thing? That you have to be really clear on. But then just go out there and start saying that over and over again. Be really consistent about repeating, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is how I can help you. You just keep doing that over and over and over, and it will start to click. I promise you that. I wanted to say a couple of things, because we're kind of coming into land now, just to let you know where we are, Wilson, but we've really sort of got this what, who, and why structure throughout what you've been saying. You've got the idea of what is it that brings you true fulfillment, going beyond the material, but what is the stuff that really brings you that sense of fulfillment, satisfaction, that sense of, yeah, I'm doing something good with my life, even if it's in a job that you don't like. Like, what are where are the areas you can find fulfillment? So that's that sense of like, what is it? Can you name it? Can you name it to tame it, as my friend Tahira would say? The second thing is who. Like, what's the experience you want people to have when they make contact with you? Yeah. What are the conversations you need to have, and with who about? What do you see in me that inspires you? Or what is it about how I talk about this subject that you think is helping you build or drive or take things forward? Where do you see me come alive when I'm talking about different things? What's the thing I haven't noticed about myself, but you go, Dan, you're really into that. So there's that sense of who, and that sense of connection, that sense of contact, and how we want to be remembered. And then the last piece, so we've got the what, that sense of who, and then we've got that sense of why, which is about your impact. And like you said, saying something like, I just want to make the world a better place. That's a lovely abstract notion, but how do you bring it down to planet Earth? Like, how are you going to do that thing? Why do you want to do that thing? Like, why do you want to help people in a particular way? So I love the fact that we've sort of ended up with this really clear sense of structure as we've been talking. And I wanted to put out a quick challenge, actually, to people out there. Lots of people talk about like financial freedom as the goal, right? Like I want to make loads of money. So it's not about the money, it's about freedom. Right? People talk about it all the time. Like they want freedom to do whatever they want. Unfortunately, the world isn't really like that, right? Like there's not, we can't all have that level of wealth, that level of freedom, because then money has no up and down value anymore. Right. If we all get that level of freedom, like that's not the way the economy works. So again, think about that. I mean, that's a different podcast episode. But if it's just about the money, if it's just about financial freedom, I would venture to suggest that the thing you're doing probably isn't your calling. If when you get out of bed every day and you have a narrative in your mind that says, keep hustling so you can get financial freedom, the thing that you're doing probably isn't your calling, and probably isn't going to lead to healthy, happy relationships, a healthy, balanced lifestyle. You might have all the money to book all the flights, but you probably won't want to go anywhere because you don't like your life. You know what I mean? I'm not saying don't make money. We all want to make money. But if actually you're telling yourself financial freedom is the goal, the thing you're doing that today probably isn't the thing you want to do. So just bear that in mind. Like maybe think about, like you said, what's your magic? Like who are you really here to serve? And then how do you turn that into something that can generate the right level of income for you, the right level of balance for you? Because freedom isn't really about being able to go wherever you want to go, wherever you want to go there. Freedom really isn't about being able to eat at any restaurant you want in the world. Freedom is the ability to wake up tomorrow morning and go, I feel fulfilled and I care about the people around me and they care about me, and I can put food on the table and pay my bills. Like, but that's surely a better type of freedom than just being like, I could go anywhere, but I don't want to go anywhere because I'm unhappy. Great. What a great result for your life. No, maybe rethink what you're really going after. And with that, I had a whole other story lined up, Wilson, but everyone's had enough of hearing from me. They haven't had enough of hearing from you. So I'm going to make sure in the show notes that we put some links to the things that you're doing in the world. I'd love for people to follow you, connect with you, maybe even work with you. That would be wonderful. Wilson, I do want to know why you haven't invited me to be on your podcast yet, but you know, you and I will talk about that offline.
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that offline. But you know, no pressure, of course. But there is some pressure because I've mentioned it. I'm joking, everybody. If anybody's like thinking this is a weird moment, I am, of course. I'm not joking. Get me on the podcast, mate. But no, Wilson, it was wonderful having you on Culture Crush Live. It's been wonderful continuing our conversation right now. Thank you so much for making some time for the show. And listen, let's make sure that we speak again soon, yeah?
Yeah. And thank you for having me. And I hope somebody, after listening to this, is excited enough about life, because we truly have a lot to offer, regardless of what state you find yourself in. The day you realize how powerful you are, how much the world needs what you have to offer, I think it will change your life forever. Might not be at that scale, you might think, but waking up every day, I know the world needs to hear me one way or the other, not because there's something supernaturally special about me, but even the little uniqueness I found about myself can touch somebody's life. And that's the same thing. It applies to every single person. And I would just encourage us to find ourselves and share it with somebody. You'll be surprised.
Yeah, Wilson, I said that we should take people to church, didn't I? Through Culture Crush. And I think we've done a pretty decent job of making that happen, because I want to say a massive amen to all the things that you just said. But Wilson, it's been great, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me, and enjoy the rest of your day.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Culture Crush. If you've enjoyed your time with us, please like and subscribe wherever you're listening from. And if you're a culture first leader or a founder, visit anthem.oo and come and join us for the next Culture Crush Live. It'll be great to see you there and to shape one of these episodes together. Take it easy. Bye now.